This is the Retirement Mentality channel. If this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. And if you're returning, thank you very much for coming back. This is a Retirement Mentality. We talk about retirement, we talk about FIRE, we talk about real estate investing, we talk about stocks, we talk about all kinds of different ways for investing, but I kind of focus on real estate and vacation rentals. That's how I've made the bulk of my money so that I could almost kind of retire. I'm obviously said I'll have like 6 jobs. But if those are things that interest you, please stick around. Today I'm going to talk about what it costs to buy a house in Puerto Rico. You may have seen some of my other Puerto Rico videos. If not, if you're considering buying a house in Puerto Rico, today I'm going to talk about the notary fees, title fees, all those kind of things. So you know what to expect if you're going to buy a house in Puerto Rico. And then at the end of the video, I'll go over my actual settlement statement from the house that I bought so you can see exactly what I paid. So stay till the end and let's get into it right now. Okay, if you're just starting to look at buying a house in Puerto Rico, just so you know, if you're from the US, there's no restrictions to buying a house in Puerto Rico. You are good to go. It's like buying a house in the States. There's a few things that are different, and I'll go over some of those right now. But today we're just going to talk about fees. I did do another video about buying a house in Puerto Rico. That's everything you need to know about buying a house in Puerto Rico. I'll put a link to it here or here. I never know which side it's going to be on whenever I point, and then I'm looking at the camera and things get turned around. Anyway, there will be a card up here somewhere linking to my other video about how to buy a house in Puerto Rico. But today, let's just talk about the fees and the costs involved in closing the deal. The first thing that's a little bit different is the earnest money. We call it an earnest money deposit. They call it something else. They call it an option, because they don't write purchase contracts, they write option to purchase contracts, so it's a little bit different. But anyway, they put 5% down. 5% of the purchase price is the option fee that you put down. That's the equivalent to your earnest money deposit that you're used to in the US. So not like a lot of times in the US you do 1% as an earnest money deposit. Here it's 5% and it's non-refundable. So a lot of the negotiations take place before you actually ink the deal, because if you back out, that's it, you forfeit the money. On the other hand, if you ink the deal and you have a contract and the seller backs out, they pay you 2 times the 5% that you put down. So there's pain involved on both parties after you sign the contract. So be sure all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed by the time you get it down and put it on paper. And I'll note here also that it's good if you don't speak Spanish, or even if you do speak Spanish. My wife is from Spain and we've bought multiple properties. And some of the words in the contract and the legalese type of words she wasn't familiar with. She hadn't seen them before. So it's good to have bilingual real estate agent if you can get one. A bilingual attorney is priceless. I had a bilingual home inspector. If you're getting appraisals, if you're getting mortgages, all those things, be sure that you have bilingual people helping you so that you can understand everything. There's going to be a notary fee and then also real estate commissions, obviously, if there's realtors involved. The seller typically pays the notary fee and the seller pays the listing agent commission. There's a push now. I'm starting to see some, because there's not a lot of buyer's agents in Puerto Rico. It's very difficult. Most agents don't put their properties on the MLS. I'm not going to get into that whole can of worms right now. But some people are choosing to pay a buyer's agent out of their pocket. So if you're going to go this route, the typical real estate commission in Puerto Rico is the same as the US, somewhere between 4 and 6%. In my case, they paid a flat fee to the realtor and there was only a listing agent. I didn't have my own representation. I represented myself as the buyer. But if you're considering paying a buyer's agent, I would figure out what the commission is that they're paying the listing agent and try to get it to equal 2.5 or 3% to them, and then part of that be credited to your buyer's agent, and then you make up the difference as the buyer out of your own pocket, if that's the route you want to go. And if you're not used to buying Puerto Rico real estate, or if you're not used to buying real estate at all, it's probably a good idea to try to find a buyer's agent. It's very difficult, and that's a topic for a whole nother video, so that's all I'm going to say there. The buyer is going to be responsible for paying the title fees and the doc stamp, and if you're getting appraisals or inspections, obviously you're paying all of those as well. I'll get into what those fees are in a second. And taxes work just like they do in the mainland United States. They're prorated between the buyer and the seller. They're paid at the end of the year, so you prorate based on how many months the seller owned the property and how many months the buyer's going to own the property until the taxes are due. So that's similar. And I had a lot of people ask me in one of my other Puerto Rico real estate videos how much the real estate taxes are, and they run about 1% of the value of the property, give or take. Titles are recorded just like they are in the US. The deed is recorded and it's done through a place called CRIM, and you can go onto their website. I'll put a link down below if you want to poke around on their website. But the title is, they divide it into subcategories based on territory, and it needs to be filed in the correct territory place. It's something that my attorney handled for me, so just be sure you have that done, because I've heard horror stories of people filing the title in the wrong place, and then it's a big mess. So just be sure you are aware of that when you are getting your title filed. If you want to file your house through a corporation, if you want to title it or register it through a corporation, you can do that in Puerto Rico. It costs about $300 to get the corporate resolution set up. A notary has to do that for you. Your real estate attorney probably can do that if they're also a notary. And it takes about 2 weeks to get that set up. So if you're planning on doing that, put that into your timeline. And there may be some extra fees involved with the internal revenue stamps as well. I did not do that, so I don't know. This is the information that I was given, but it is possible to do that, and I may consider doing that in the future. I didn't find out about it till I was almost done with the process, and then when I found out it took an extra 2 weeks, I decided not to do it because I wanted to get the deal closed. So that is an option to keep that in mind. So what are the fees? Okay, I've got some notes here, so I'm going to be looking down. The notary fee is the max on the notary fee is 1% of the purchase price on the first $500,000, and then after the first $500,000, it's 0.5% after that. There's filing and registration fees, which are your CRIM and the Department of Registry. Those are pretty minimal. They should be less than 0.5%. Your attorney fee, your attorney is probably going to charge you somewhere between 0.5% and 1% of the purchase price. And this is money well spent. You're going to need an attorney to get a good one. And then the real estate commissions, we talked about that already. The buyer is going to pay the seller is going to pay the listing commissions. And if you want a buyer's agent, you may have to pay some of that out of your pocket, unless it's a seller that has it on the MLS and they're doing it the way they're supposed to do it. So that's the general overview of the fees involved in buying a property in Puerto Rico. That's what you'll find in the Google. But let's get into my actual settlement statement. I have it here, and I'll put a link to it in here so that we can go over it. Okay, so here is my actual settlement statement. I'm going to try to block out some of the people's names and information for privacy purposes. But you can see I paid $135,000 for the property. And then they split up $1,000 deposit in favor of realtor. I'm not sure what that is, but then the realtor got $4,000 for listing the property from the seller. These are the seller's fees on the top here where it says seller closing expenses. And then I negotiated into the contract that the seller paid the bulk of my attorney fees. So you can see here that the attorney was paid $1,612. So the seller was to net $128,388. His total fees were $6,612. And then you can see down below, buyer closing costs. The only thing that I had to pay was $737 to my attorney, which I believe was for some of the paperwork that she prepared. And then I paid $472.50 for my title, and that's it. I paid $1,209.50, and then you can see kind of the breakdown here. The attorney got $2,300. The realtor got $4,000. The title company got their $472, and then the seller netted $128,388. Pretty cut and dry. I'll say I got a lot of flack on my how to buy a house in Puerto Rico video because people said I was negative and that it was difficult and that I was complaining, and that's not the case at all. Finding a property is the hard part. And once you find the property, once I signed the contract, once everything was negotiated and then we signed the contract, closing was actually very easy. It went quickly. My attorney handled everything. She ordered the title and basically got everything done. Once the thing was inked, I just showed up 2 weeks later for the closing with a big check and we closed it. That was it. So I hope this is helpful. This goes over what your fees would be if you're planning on buying. You can, I did the percentages at the beginning before I showed you my actual paperwork so that you could kind of extrapolate the numbers to whatever price house you're looking at. If you're going to buy a condo, there's going to be HOA fees and some things added on there. But hopefully this gives you a good overview of what to expect in fees and costs to buy a house in Puerto Rico. If you did find this helpful, please hit the like button down below. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please subscribe. And even more importantly, the YouTube algorithm is now putting more weight if you ring the little bell down there to be notified when I put out a new video. So ring the bell if you're going to subscribe, and then you'll know when I put out more content like this right away, and then you can watch the videos as soon as I put them out in anticipation of my next wonderful content. And thank you for coming by, and we'll see you in the next video.